Hey everybody, how you doing? Welcome back to another episode of the Breaking Bad Show. Ryan and I are just so excited about this show. It is, at least it seems us, is taking off as far as people reaching out to us. It's almost daily now. I get a message or an email, and I just think it's so cool. So Ryan and I just want to say thank you. Thank you so much for this channel, this show, this community. This is about you. It's for you. And sorry, Bella here's just got groomed here. But we wanted to say thank you. Don't ever hesitate to reach out. A couple of people have sent us messages that we know and said, hey, so-and-so saw your show and wanted me to make an introduction. There is no introduction necessary to be made. You can reach out to us directly. Ryan and I are super responsive, super approachable, super down to earth. We are just here to help and connect. And if we don't have an answer to a question, we will surely put you in touch with someone who does. And we just wanted to thank you. And we're going to keep doing this. We're going to release a show every Tuesday. And we're going to be consistent. We're going to be deliberate. We are going to try to bring you different guests that will push the envelope, challenge your perspective, put a different narrative in your head, look at something differently. That's what we pledge to do, because whether you stay on the job or you transition to something else, you're going to need support. And even the cop, the first responder, the veteran who's going to love what they do, stay in their job, you need support to do that. It's a stressful job. And the ones that are transitioning out, which by the way, we all do at some point, you will leave your job. We're going to help you with that process too. It took me 10 months to leave law enforcement. I went right from the military into law enforcement. So for 21 years, I was in this indoctrination, this mindset, and it took me 10 complete full months to move on totally. And then there's an adjustment. There's an adjustment process there, and don't minimize that or discount that. It is a real process. There is a transition, is a real thing. So we're here to help you. So, speaking of awesome guests, impactful guests, today we are so grateful, so humbled to introduce you, the ones who don't know, to Jeff Schiefelbein. I met Jeff at the Veteran Edge Conference. I believe it's the largest veteran-owned entrepreneur conference in the country. And Jeff was giving a speech there, presentation, and he just captivated me. I don't know if it's because I have the same values as Jeff. I can just relate to how much family is important and how much values and living virtuously and being courageous and putting others before yourself. All those things really resonate with me. So I think that's a lot of it. But two, what really inspires me about Jeff, it's affirmation, it's vindication that you can be all in on your people and be all in making sure they have a great culture and also be a high achiever and be very successful. It doesn't have to be one or the other. You can do both. It's a lot of work. And Jeff will outline it for you. It's a lot of work. And those leaders out there are doing it right. You know how hard it is to do that job. It's not easy. So we need to uplift the good leaders that are setting a good culture, because culture is everything. As our friend Chief Harvey said, culture trumps policy. So we are excited to introduce you to Jeff Schiefelbein. For those who don't know, for those who do, and I already see a small following on our Breaking Bad LinkedIn page from Jeff's followers. So we appreciate that. Thank you. Keep following us, keep supporting us. We are here for you. Never forget, it's 100% about you and 0% about us. Thanks. This is the Breaking Bad Show. Jeff, welcome. Thanks for being here with us.
Thank you.
I want to run through some things about Jeff. And I met Jeff in, I believe it was October 1st. I was at a conference at the Veteran Edge Conference in Dallas. I got my breakfast. I'm sitting down. I'm meeting some other veterans-owned business owners, and we're talking. And then Jeff Schiefelbein's coming up to speak. And so I'm listening. I'm always respectful and courteous and listening. But I'm also taking some notes of things I have to do for the day. And as soon as Jeff starts talking about culture and leadership and values, I start picking my head up and looking. And then I found myself writing pages of notes that Jeff was speaking about at the conference. And I want to bring these because I love everything you have to do. So Jeff is, he's a chief culture officer at Five. It's a national energy advisory firm. He's married. He has 5 kids. He talks about his kids in his keynotes and his presentations. And Jeff's also a public speaker. So he goes around nationally and helps motivate just countless and thousands of people. And Jeff was one of the guys I wanted to have on the show early on when we started it. I tagged him. And Jeff, welcome to the show. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you. And thank you to Ryan, too. I know I'm getting my new introduction here to Ryan. I've enjoyed just a little bit we've talked. But I got to tell you, my bio is changing as we speak because baby number 6 is due in August. So,
Congratulations.
and by the way, Ryan, my oldest is 8. So, and none of them are twins. So 86421, new baby coming. So we're blessed beyond belief, my friends.
Oh, my
We have a
goodness.
lot of kids on the same sports teams. That's going to be awesome.
You know what I tell people? They say I have young kids, and I say I have kids the same age as you. And they're like, I haven't told you, and I'm like, I just guarantee I have kids the same age. Like, I have them all. No,
Oh,
it's a
my
blessing.
goodness.
Make no mistake about it. It is the greatest thing to be humbled by walking in your house and trying to triage which kid needs you in that moment for different reasons. And then the beauty I've found is once I'm done making sure that I'm with whatever kid needs me, then I get to pick which kid do I need, like which version of a dialogue or a loving embrace or a game or a goofiness is going to match what I need in that moment. And it is the most beautiful thing to realize that they give me the same that I'm giving to them, just in a totally different way.
I love that. It's such a harmonious thing.
Thank you. Thank
Yeah,
you.
I remember
I
working.
can talk about my kids for the whole hour, so I don't want to.
No, that's good. I mean, I remember when I was doing undercover work and I lived about 50 minutes from the police department. And I remember some days were just, buying drugs in the back of a car in a bar or kicking indoors. And I've always tried to be mindful of balance and understand my place in the world. And I remember driving home sometimes so stressed out, and I'd walk in the door and my little, my son and daughter would run up, "Daddy, daddy, daddy." And they're running to my arms with this big smile. And it was those moments that I realized, man, I am just a humble person navigating through the world, trying to be the best father and person I can be. And the kids are just a great way to make you appreciate life and God and all these things that are happening to us every day. And sometimes we get distracted by all those things, but kids bring you back. I love that.
Well, Chet, I've never had that experience of having to have that level of stress, but even anybody who's just in a profession like mine, I'm in the energy industry. People come home and they bear this stress and they bring it to their children, which is totally unfounded. And I feel like you either have a faith-based experience or you hit rock bottom or you have a tragedy, something happens in your life. And a lot of times that's the wake-up call to realize, like, in perspective, my kids not following instructions or talking back or the mess in the living room isn't like what I just experienced in your case, kicking down the door, in my case, having an employee issue. Like, why am I bearing that? And the very fast version that you got to hear at the energy or the Veteran Edge conference, I had to say goodbye to one of my kids. My 4th kid, his lungs never opened when he was born. He never got held by his mom after a C-section. He was 9 months gestation. And he crashed, and was on all these different machines. They paralyzed him, sedated him, put a tube in his side to drain as they were pumping so much air into him. And at midnight, my wife met him to say goodbye to her son for the first time she ever met him. And he didn't die. We actually ended up calling in a priest and had him baptized at 8 a.m. And then we finally asked for prayers at noon. He was 36 hours old. And the next x-ray, his lungs opened. And they still said, "We're not trying to give you false hope," but the doctor was crying, telling me, "Your son's lungs open. It's the first thing I can tell you. That's been good news." And then fast forward to the day we bring him home, the day his older 3 siblings meet him. I mean, they met him and just kissed him incessantly. And then I got to change him weeks later and see that scar on his side and all the wounds in his hands and feet and kiss them and love him. And now he's 2.5 years old. He's the loudest, craziest. His lungs work. Let me just tell you this, okay? And when your kid is kicking and fighting to go to bed and they're kicking you in all the wrong places and you're hunkered over, I can sit there and just rub his back and I'm like, "Ambrose, it's okay, buddy. Hang in there." And he's headbutting me in the nose. "Oh, okay, it's okay." And he's my reminder that I don't need to carry whatever weird stress I have in my life and place it on everybody else. There's other ways to deal with it. And he actually makes me more patient with all the other kids. He gets the most of it. The other ones still get a lot of it. They get the halo effect.
When you were telling that story at the conference, I remember the mechanism of your speech, and you're bringing us along for this journey and this ride, which is great. And that's what professional public speakers do. But you bring us this journey, this ride, then you tell us the story. So I'm thinking that, God forbid, he's going to tell us this heartbreaking ending, and then it's this inspirational, unbelievable ending, and then the picture you show with everybody kissing him, I was just like blown away I was crying. I remember crying. I remember looking around the table, because I'm always a crier, but I'm looking around and everybody was captivated, but I'm the only one crying. I'm like, oh, I just had to like wipe my tears away. But it was very inspirational. And I sensed, sitting in that audience,
your gratitude. I mean, that would just came, it was screaming loud, banging drums of how grateful and appreciative you are of that. And I love that because it made me think like, I need to be more appreciative of things, or it makes you, when you're around people like you think about how can I be better human being. So
Chad, and like, if you think about that moment, right, and the whole fight or flight of our lives, and we're all geared towards whatever we're geared towards. As I sat next to his bed, he was lifeless, except for they were pumping so much air into him, his body was just shaking, but there was no reflex in his hand, there was nothing. And I can remember that my solemn prayer was, thy will be done, and I'm going to spend every second I can with my eyes on this child in case he doesn't make it, another day, and just get to know who he is, what he looks like, how his body is shaped. And just, my wife was stuck recovering from a C-section. And I just wanted to love every second, not every minute, every second I had with him, and be grateful that that was a second that I got to be his dad while he was alive. I didn't know which way it was going to go. I wasn't in a bartering mood with God. I wasn't angry. I just wanted to love my son, and I wanted my wife to come and be able to see what it was like to see this beautiful young baby. And now, this morning he's singing in canto songs in the breakfast area with me. So things are going pretty well. But if they didn't, I'd still be me. I'd still be dad. I'd still be husband. I'd still be, business colleague to all these people here. So I'm thankful that I am in the situation I'm in, but I recognize that there's a lot of people who ended up with a story that went the other way.
Yeah. Jeff, we'll have to have you back another time and do a whole spiritual episode. And
absolutely,
I would love to do that. Because that is, I have so many questions I want to ask you already, but Ryan and I've been interacting with so many first responders, especially the last year since I've left. Ryan's gone a little longer than that, but now because of the show, we're talking with some first responders all over the country. And Ryan and I both have experiences in poor culture and bad leadership and just toxic environments. And we've also experienced great ones. So that dichotomy is always interesting of how those things come to be. What are the common trends and themes? And listening to you speak, I have all these bullet notes I wrote down from my company that I started about culture and things that I want to have as part of our ethos and our policy that you were talking about as far as indoctrinating values. And why do you think so many agencies or organizations struggle with culture? What have you learned in your experiences?
Yeah, great question. And I love the agencies, organizations. To me, it's all people. Everything that we do is people. No matter what your profession, no matter what the outcome, this is a people world that we live in, and people businesses and people services. I think that we got ingrained in us a whole lot of false pretenses around why things exist. So if you think about the business books of the 70s, 80s, and 90s, you think about the Jack Welch, shareholder value. That's what this is all about, which I'm pretty sure he retracted 15 years later. And you think about even our sports, our education, our social structures are designed around making sure that I'm great and you're not. They're designed around saying that for me to win, you need to lose, and that the winner takes all, and that there couldn't be a place where we're in it together. And so you end up like being reinforced in that over and over and over. And so then business becomes an individual sport. Law enforcement, like, look how great I am. And you know what it stems from? Human fear and human need. We all need to feel loved. We're all afraid of looking bad. We all want to look good. So even go to your marriages, go to your other relationships. It's the exact same thing. Like, I want to be right, or would I rather be successful? Being successful means I got to be on the same side as my coworkers, as my fellow law enforcement officers, as my wife, right there. I don't see the difference in any of this. So I think the genesis of that problem is that it's culturally ingrained in our capitalism, in our education, in our sports. And I'm not saying to give everybody a trophy. I'm actually against it. But I don't think that everything has to be an individual sport and a zero-sum game. I think you can move up the culture ladder from I'm great and you're not, to imagine an agency that says we're great and they're not. Maybe it's a crosstown agency that they just want to have as a rivalry. Maybe it's the bad guys. Maybe it's the drug dealers. We're great and they're not. Like, think about that rally cry that you feel if you jump on a Southwest Airlines airplane, and the baggage claim person and the pilot and the gate agent, they all act like we're great. And they kind of like, and they're not, whatever airline they're talking about. That's that next level. And if you can maintain the we're great level, but still you have to perform, still you have individual accountability, still you got to be aligned with the mission, vision, and values, and understand everybody you're touching. But at the end of the day, that's where breakthroughs happen, because now we're not fighting each other. We're sprinting alongside each other. We can sense, oh, Chad's in a bad spot today. Let me pick him up. you know what, Ryan's got extra energy right now and I'm getting slammed. Ryan, hand up, man, I need something here. I even need you just to jump on with me and pump me back up because I'm about to enter something difficult. That sprinting is where you have breakthrough and connection. And you can even get to know people so well that when I start going to mental health and all the stuff that I've seen the two of you guys doing, you start to be able to sense in people, there's something going on. Let's triage first with the non-professional side. Let's just triage as buddies, as coworkers, and then figure out, is this so deep that we need to start getting a specialist involved? Is there an intervention that needs to happen? I think that comes from culture, and great cultures can sense that you're not immune to anxiety, depression, PTSD. But wow, if you had your whole team that had their senses up because they knew you well enough to catch that, that doesn't come when you say, I'm great and you're not.
You're talking, I'm applying it to situations I've been in, and Ron and I, we always talk, like, I know when we hang up with you, we're going to connect and reflect on the words you said and correlate that to our experiences and how we can use that to help other first responders. So for you, where did that value system or structure come from? And was it your childhood, or what experience in your life that made that? Because I can tell you know who you are and you know what you're not,
Yeah.
and you're very intentional on that. Where did that come from?
This is an awesome question. I love that I didn't know these questions ahead of time for anybody watching, because I can be in the moment and react with you. I've asked myself this a lot, and I think that somehow I had the personality type to be truth-seeking my entire life, and that I wanted to not live in fast forward, but live in experiences so that I could have the wisdom of experiences. Like, instead of sitting around thinking about what it would be like to be in a good situation, a bad situation, I kind of just went out and tried life. And I kept finding that when I did things that were selfish, self-promoting, that probably looked good on Instagram, I had that kind of shallowness to me. So then if you apply it in business, when I did those things that made sure that I was the best looking salesperson in the organization, that I was getting put up on the stage and other people were having to suffer for it as an early 20 something, it felt empty. It felt like a vacuum. And then every time that I flipped that script and I cared about the intentionality behind my interactions with somebody, that I put myself in somebody else's shoes and wondered what it must be like for them in the interaction they're having with me or the impacts of what I do. And then I put myself into the situation of when I'm actually contributing, when I'm actually being well-rounded in my whole self, which includes mental, physical, spiritual, and that it's not just this nice little thing on the side, it's that I'm fully invested in it. I kept finding meaning, I kept finding purpose, and then I kept driving myself back to, God gave me a certain set of gifts and I'm going to use them to help people. And sometimes those gifts are different than Chad and Ryan's. Sometimes they line up, but regardless, my body wasn't put here to pump blood and to breathe oxygen. I just have to do that. My body wasn't put here to make money, but for my family's sake, I need to make money. But none of those are a reason. And, if you're as good looking as the two of you guys are, well, what happens when you have the bad accident and your facial structure has changed? Are you still Ryan? Are you still Chad? If I lose this job, am I still father? Am I still son? Am I still spouse? Am I still, yes, none of those details of work and what I look like and did I lose any limbs serving in the military? None of those details define me at all. I know I'm on a tangent here, but gosh, I just think if you can break it down and realize like the who you are is so much bigger and greater than anything you can project outwardly, because it is a being and a presence of how you show up with the gifts God gave you.
So I have, my next question is about identity, and you literally just answered, you did a perfect segue. So I struggle with identity when I was towards the end of my career as a detective. I started to blur, and I was teaching the wellness class yesterday at the police academy, and I share my own experiences because I made failures and a lot of mistakes. And I started to blur the lines of what I do as opposed to who I am. And I started to look at the headline, right? Detective, college, what college degrees I have, how many arrests I made. I started to take these professional achievements and started to wrap my identity around them, forgetting that I'm a husband, I'm a father, I like romantic movies. I need to YouTube how to put a light bulb in, like all the goods and bads that make me me. And I realized through that process, and what you said was absolutely true. And this is my question is, many police officers I know, and I went through it, struggle with identity. They struggle with balance, struggle with getting to those things. And I know, especially in the first responder community, that the demands are so hard. You have to work overtime, weekends, holidays, night shift. How did you do that you're a high achiever. You've done a lot of great, successful things. Now you have a sixth kid on the way, which is awesome, by the way. How did you learn to balance all that and also keep your humility and your perspective?
Yeah, I think let me start at the very end, because for being a high achiever, humility and ego you're aiming for humility, but you fight ego the whole time. I could not be in the situation I am right now without the mentors that are still in my life. A college mentor that I'll be guest lecturing for his class next week. Some mentors that did personal coaching for me, people that have come alongside me. And it's like this journey and this struggle, and it's a non-judgmental journey, but people who will speak into your life about, Jeff, what you shared was strong, but the intention by the way you shared it was ugly. Your impact to the people you were talking with was diluted by you reading your own press or having the titles or having the statistics. And it's tough because you can sit here and say, well, I have all these awards and I have a company that has all this growth. Like, I want to be able to point to it to validate me. Well, what about if you can just flip that and say, I just want you to know that we have these awards for growth and culture and leadership because they are an outward symbol of the internal reality of our culture. And some of this stuff, like my education background and my awards that I've won, they're an outward symbol of there must be something that I'm able to bring to the table now and today, because resting on I was so important when I started my first nonprofit isn't helping you guys on this show. Getting engaged in the present moment of, we have a conversation right now, we have a chance to really help some people. And I've heard you say before, if we help one first responder, one law enforcement officer, one retiree right now, what a great use of our time. And that's the intention. The great post you made on LinkedIn to get ready for this, that just piques somebody's interest. That has nothing to do with who the person is here. And when I've gone through that journey, right, I've tried to be rich, I've tried to be high achiever, I've tried to travel, I've tried to do all these things, and I was always like, man, there's something missing to this. I remembered that anytime that I let the young dork in me come out, I felt awesome. Like, I felt alive, I had fun, I would giggle, I would cry, I would be this little dork. And you know why that dork went away for a while? Because it's scary to be a high school dork. It's a lot easier to be a high school maniac that don't mess with Jeff because he might punch you. Like, so then you kind of build up this shell around you. And I guarantee your listeners know this, right? This shell of like, well, I'm just going to be macho on the negative side, not even like defending other people, just stepping up so that nobody will mess with me. Well, you're killing part of yourself in that. That's not who I was meant to be. There's a time and a place that you got to get physical, and especially in the jobs that y'all are describing. But that doesn't mean that's who I am. Like, little dorky Jeff needs to grow up and show up. And so I think it's funny today, if somebody comes up to me and meets me before a conference and says, well, what do? You know what I talk about? I'm like, well, I'm raising 5 kids right now. I have this amazing wife, and what we like to do is we like to hike. We really enjoy spending time together, reading. And I go through this like, what do I do? And people are like, what do you do for a living? I'm like, well, actually, that's a great question. And I start talking about coaching and speaking and the radio show I do for free on the Catholic radio station and this. I'm like, oh, and the company that I started is actually who pays me and does my benefits. We're a huge energy consultant that does energy advisory work for the Empire State Building and a whole bunch of huge clients. That's really cool, and we're the best at it. But that's not like what I do. It just happens to be where this skill set and this team full of amazing people is deploying a skill set to help people. We just happen to be experts in energy, helping people. One more thing that jumps out at me when I hear this question. There's a big difference between me telling a coworker, me telling a friend, I appreciate that you took that box to the car for me. I appreciate that you won the big deal. You sold a big deal today. I appreciate that big deal. That has a shallowness to it because it's about the result. I just appreciate you for you. I appreciate you for the effort. My daughter had the highest grades in her grade, whatever that was, first grade last year. And I can remember telling my wife, like, I don't think I'm going to talk about that. I'm going to thank her for her effort and for being who she is, for being this beautiful girl who's trying her best, because I don't need my other kids feeling like if they don't become the best in their class in first grade that they're any different. Show up with your best. I appreciate you. And that's a huge lesson in showing love and contribution to other people.
So true, because I feel like we have a lot of failures. I mean, yeah, we have a lot of successes, but I feel, at least I can speak for me, I probably fail more than I succeed. So if we're focusing on the pursuit and the journey, which hopefully all of us are given 100%, even with our failures, we're really drawing attention to the challenge and the struggles we overcome. So I love that. Last question for me, Jeff. And I love this because one of the things that stuck out to me about your presentation is your family. I come from the military, come from law enforcement, saw a lot of dysfunction, saw a lot of infidelity, saw a lot of divorce, saw a lot of unkind behavior that men and women do towards their spouses. And I'm not saying I'm a perfect husband. I made a lot of mistakes too, but I've really picked up on you for how much that it plays a role in your life. How has your family, how has your wife enhanced and enriched your life?
I love this. And I've seen you make posts on LinkedIn about this, and it warms my heart every time I see this kind of stuff. And from anybody out there who is promoting how important this is. I got to say that this whole idea for me and my wife has always been, what do we want our relationship and then our future kids and then our current kids, and as we've kind of progressed, what do we want it to feel like and look like? So we would sit down on our birthdays each year. We have June birthdays. We'd sit down between and we'd say, what, not even the specific goals, what does life look like for us a year from now and 5 years from now? And we talked about Sundays are family days, and we have family dinners 4 to 6 nights a week at a table. We have no electronics in our house. We only use them on road trips with certain things. Like, we don't want our kids to have, this kind of access, so we're going to have to make up for it here. And we did an entire kind of starting off with the end game and then working our way back to, okay, well, in order to do that, what kind of behaviors would we need to have? What would we need to do different in our house in order for Sundays to be family day? What do we have to say no to? What do we have to do to start cooking at home more? All these things. And she has been this beautiful part of a team saying, let's go win together. Let's be successful together. Not, this is what I want. This is what I want. She has an old soul. I'm 11 years older than my wife, which might explain why we're having so many kids, and I'm a 43-year-old man. But this idea that she's able to visualize and then work her way backwards to, what is the thing I need to do next that takes me further towards this, further towards a home full of kids who love God and not further away from it. Okay. But every decision we make, that's one of the filters. What are our priorities? What are we trying to go towards? And we certainly get busy. There's days where I get sucked into this company or some of the nonprofits, or I'm traveling. They can get pretty hard, but we make sure that every night that we're actually in the same house, we don't finish the night. We're both off of social media now outside of LinkedIn. We finish the night with a glass of sleepy time tea. And then we sit there and just download on the day, check in on times that were hard or that we felt like a bad parent, lost our cool, something that we learned today that helped us to connect back to why we do what we do. And it is beautiful. And, I'm exhausted at the end of the day, but I can't wait to put on my comfortable little house slippers and go sit and have my tea with my wife. So I'm telling you, little dorky Jeff, he's back, baby. Like, I get to spend dorky time with my wonderful wife.
I love it. And that's why we love this show is Ryan and I could sit here and ask you all these professional questions. And I'm sure, I know I was doing YouTube and Google, and you've done so many interviews and podcasts and specials, and I loved it. But we wanted something different, something that is relatable. Because you look at Jeff, the person, the professional, and you see all these great things. But when you pull the curtain back, you see he's just like you and I. We're all much more connected than we realize. We all have strengths. We all have weaknesses. We're all trying to get through the day. And like you said, I love how you said that, sometimes you're off your mark and you and your wife sit around and talk about it. Okay, how can we get back to that? And I feel like that's life. It's this constant self-awareness exercise of, okay, we're straying a little bit from what we want. Let's bring it back. This is going really good in our life. This isn't. Let's figure it out. I feel like that's what, especially our first responder veterans and viewers need to understand is life's going to get messy sometimes. It's okay. Surround yourself with people that love you and care about you and are going to help you pull you back in the right direction.
And focusing on physical health allows you to be more present and clear in those relationships. And you can't always control it, but when you're unhealthy, it's harder to be patient, loving, and present to your spouse.
Jeff, you had so much amazing stuff that you shared there. So much. Actually, you went right in and answered one of the questions that I have, but you did mention something that I wanted to bring up and learn a little more about it. And that's when you talked about how as those negative things might happen to us in our lives, we build up the shell around us. And and it's even, I think it's more true and more prevalent in law enforcement, in that, I've told Chad about this story and everything, but I mean, I had an incident very early on in my career that I always said, there was one person walked into that house and a completely different person walked out. And it took years to discover that person again. So when you came to that realization that, gee, I've lost who I was by building up this shell, this protective shell around me, what did you then do to rediscover yourself and get yourself back to that person that you truly were at heart?
Yes. Awesome. And I got to imagine your story is repeated over and over too, the trauma of an event or a series of events. First and foremost, I know myself. I'm somebody who I belong in fresh air. I think I was not meant to be inside of buildings. So I will spend as much time outside as I possibly can, even if it means I'm just sitting there, because fresh air is good for my soul. I have found that the more personal I ever make an interaction with somebody, the more I understand myself and that person in that interaction. Now, I'll share with you a story that many years ago I had somebody tell me that you can't be friends with people that work for you. And I can remember reflecting and coming back and saying, fundamentally, I disagree. I said, I think in ordinary America, people buy into that, just like I said at the beginning of the podcast. But I think that if you put in extraordinary effort, you can be friends with everybody. I can be friends with somebody who ends up losing their job here. I can be friends with somebody that's having to go through a tough personal battle. Maybe they're having a tough time in their personal life, and I can call them out of love. But when I say make it personal, I think when you can share with somebody out of vulnerability and then ask them the same types of questions about, Ryan, what right now in your life is giving you energy? What's draining you? And what is life teaching you right now? What do you think you're supposed to be learning in your personal life? And what is life teaching you in your professional life? It's pretty interesting, because if you can start getting 2, maybe even 3 or 4 men and women sitting around having that conversation, not everybody's going to break through, but somebody will almost inevitably talk about how they realize they need to forgive their father for something 25 years ago, or somebody realizes they need to stop abusing some part of their authority, or whatever the case may be. They come to these like, you know what life is teaching me, you know what God is teaching me. But the series of like getting there, how am I personally and professionally energy draining, and what's life teaching me, brings that out in people in a really neat way. And the more you kind of have those kind of conversations with people, I start team meetings with the most personal conversations. My whole company does it every morning for a kickoff call. You remember the humanity of the person across from you. And even if you're not ready to be vulnerable, if somebody else in the room will be, something's chipping away at that hard shell that you put around your heart. And I think over time it works. The other thing I would say is, if you're not in a tough spot, if you're in a place that you feel good and you feel present to other people want to belong. Even if they say they don't want to belong, or they try to push you off, or you can see that hard shell, belonging often means you just come alongside them wherever they are in their life, whatever they're doing, even in their problems. You accompany them, because that sense of belonging is a place where people start to be reminded of who they really are at the core, who they were before they started putting up this wall, who they want to be. And it's because somebody is just present to them. You don't have to have the right answers. You don't have to have like the magic, I hope you feel better in 2 days because I hung out with you. Friendship and living your life can be the example, the witness to what's possible for this person, and give them hope.
I'm just going to stop right there. I'm going to tell everyone listening to pause, rewind, and listen to that again, because I know I'm going back and I'm taking notes on that section, because you mentioned a couple questions. I mean, even just listening to you, I'm thinking about a couple of things and everything. I'm like, okay, I definitely going to go back and listen to this over again when we publish it, because there was some really great introspective questions that we can really focus on ourselves. And that was definitely some of the things you said there. That was I was just realizing that that's going to be impactful for some listeners. So.
Right, I had to make a series. I had to make a series of tough decisions over the past few weeks, and sometimes when you're making tough decisions and it impacts other people, it's easy to feel a sense of power. Like there's a powerfulness in that. And I remember telling my wife a week ago, like, just pray that I don't lose myself in this feeling of being powerful. And I, in a lot of the stuff that had to happen, I've cried multiple times in preparation for some of the tough conversations. I've cried in prayer, and it was so. I mean, it's it's hard to share and not sound like I'm losing my humility, but that those tears reminded me that I haven't lost myself in that moment because I care so much about the people involved.
The other thing I wanted to ask, Jeff, is, I know you do a lot of work with culture, and as a young police officer, wasn't anything that I knew about. I didn't realize the culture in my police department until I started studying and learning about the business world, and actually learning about culture and realizing, oh, that's a big reason why I'm not very happy here. This is starting to make sense. So I guess my first question, the first part of this would be, is it possible to change the culture in an organization if that change isn't necessarily coming from the top and upper leadership?
Incredible question. I'm going to give you a no yes answer. The no answer is, I don't think your effort does it overnight. I, in fact, think that what you should focus on is the culture within the tightest group of people you can. 3 people having shared experiences, 3 people having accountability, vulnerability, celebration together, 3 people that not only accept each other's mistakes, are excited that when somebody makes a mistake, that's a place of growth. That it's going to be hard when they have to give and receive coaching. Just like if you went to the gym, you're not going to go just hang out. You want to pump some weights and feel that burn. You want to get to the place where you have at least a small pocket of people with you that can have that sense of spotting you while you're benching your max, right?
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't change the culture from the top down. But now imagine that other people see, okay, Ryan, Chad, and Jeff have this incredible culture among themselves, and they don't even know the word for it. They just say, why are they having so much fun at work? Or why do they seem to be happier at work than me? Why do they seem to be in a place where the bad stuff rolls off their back faster? And so they want what you have, and they don't know what it is, but they're trying to get in. So, what's happening next in this group? How are we growing? What are we doing to share the podcast that I listen to in the car, or the growth opportunity, or we come and meet with somebody over coffee and get some wisdom from somebody? And so it starts to kind of grow and grow and grow. And all I think you're doing there is creating the right soil so that if a change out ever happens at the top, or a life moment happens to the people, the person who's really driving the culture, maybe it's tragedy, maybe it's some sort of maturity, maybe it's a faith experience, that there's fertile soil all around them, ready for them to come and be part of the planting. If not, you still gained, and all the people around you still gained from that effort, and maybe people move on, or at least their bad culture is not as bad as it could be without that effort. So I think it's a worthy effort to play the long game, no matter how bad it feels from the top.
The follow-up question to that, and that was, what are the steps that you take? And a big thing I noticed you mentioned there is, and which I think is one thing that contributes to the negative culture, is not necessarily wanting to be accepting of others into your group, trying to make your group more exclusive. Whereas, like you said, when you grow in that positive group, being accepting of the other people that want to come in and join you.
And you don't have to have the same things in common with somebody to appreciate and love them for who they are. So think about that from politics. Think about that from religion. I'm just talking about the most divisive things, right? But at the end of the day, if I just appreciate what is it that makes Ryan tick, what is it that is your trigger points, what are the things that I've seen you do that nobody's even watching, and you're doing something special, or you love something that I have no connection to. You might love the symphony, and I can't even sit in a symphony for, if you paid me to. But because I know things that make you tick, I start to love and appreciate the unique humanness of Ryan. And you start getting into politics. Look, I'm not going to be the next president of the United States, and neither is anybody else, that's in my friend group. So what if we disagree on some political things? Let's just do it out of love and contribution. And I do mean love, because I think love is abundant. I don't love you guys the way I love my wife, but I have love for you. And so that's a place that we go to be sustainable in love and restorative in love. And it is one heck of a powerful force that I'm never going to run out of, as evidenced by my 6 kids.
That is
amazing. No, that's beautiful. And I do know, I remember probably when I was in my 20s, and I started really focusing on even the most annoying people or the most frustrating people, appreciating them for their own unique differences and what they were. And I remember the appreciation that I started to have, and the more even tolerant that I got of other people. And just by doing that, by appreciating each person by their own unique being. So I love
Ryan,
that.
when you go and see a speaker somewhere on stage and they're dynamic and moving and powerful, you're like, yes, this is awesome. And then you go to the next one and it's just deflating and life sucking. It's really easy to be like, oh my goodness, I have to sit through 45 minutes of this. And what I found myself doing was turning around and saying, what about this room right now is causing this to happen to me? Is it this person's inflection? What about the podium? Is it the topic? Is it their cadence? Is it that they're looking down? How could I set up this room better so that this person's talk wouldn't feel as painful? Is there anything I could have done in here from the visuals? And now I'm not picking on the person. I'm learning from something that instead of sitting around being in pain, okay, well, I'm going to be in here. We might as well use it for something good. Let's grow in this moment. That's like your example. Like, I'm not going to become best friends with this person. No problem. What's something I can appreciate about their approach, their intellect? There's plenty of people when they talk, I have no idea what they're saying. I appreciate how smart they are.
Jeff, we do a segment here at the end. It's called 5 Questions. It's a rapid fire game. We love to do this because it's a way for our guests to get their personality out there. And
hey,
and maybe,
five's the right number. I trademarked the digit 5 in the energy space, so I think you're speaking to my heart here.
I did not even realize 5 questions in 5. That's right.
Wow.
Jeff is the chief culture officer at 5. Wow, that is funny. All right, 5 questions in honor of 5. Ready for this?
I am.
All right. Favorite vacation destination?
Estes Park, Colorado.
Ooh.
Hiking.
Okay.
Chill town, not that ritzy, just national park. Estes Park.
My kind of place.
Yeah.
2-part question. Favorite musical artist and the first concert you've ever been to?
Weezer, from the old days, not even from the current. I mean, those original Weezer albums. You know, when you're like 16 years old and it becomes the soundtrack of your life? I don't care what it is. When you're 16, that's the soundtrack of the rest of your life.
Yeah, totally.
And then my first musical concert was either Janet Jackson or Weird Al Yankovic, and I can't remember.
Weird Al.
That's amazing. Weird Al. I love that.
Weird Al broke his guitar, and I got a piece of it that I probably still have in a save box at my parents' house, and that was awesome. He was such a performer. Yeah.
That is amazing.
That is
Weird
awesome.
Al. He's always underrated. Like the way he rewrites parodies and phrases them together, genius. Yeah, very good. All right, you have 6. Now you have 6 on the way. 5 kids. I don't have 5, but I know what 3's like. So I know about Disney movies. Next question. Favorite Disney movie?
You know, I don't think it's Disney, but I love watching Paddington.
Okay.
That little bear. Have you seen this?
I have. Yeah, it's good.
I want to be best friends with that bear. And when they're like, let's watch Frozen, and I'm like, well, it's broken, but Paddington's working. Let's just watch Paddington. I'll also accept Trolls because it's so 80s. I love it.
Oh, so good, yeah. And the soundtrack of Trolls is great.
Yes.
Okay, this is going to be a little tricky. Put you on the spot. Somebody comes to you, a leader, an executive comes to you, wants one sentence of advice you could give them to make their culture better. And it could be a broken sentence, but what's that one line or sentence you give them?
Stop saying you have to and start acting like you get to.
Okay. Thought that'd be a lot harder, but I guess not. Saturday night. What's your wife's name? Amanda. You and Amanda are sitting around Saturday night. Obviously, you have 5 kids, but let's say they're in bed, all sleeping. What are you and Amanda doing on a Saturday night? What meal are you making, and then what are you doing after dinner?
Yeah, we'll make something really, really fresh. We eat healthy and clean, so we're going to be making some sort of a great stew or maybe some sort of a fish tacos. And then afterwards, we are most likely to be sitting around where she lights the fire, even if it's a Texas summer, the fireplace is on. And we're sitting around just loving having a one-on-one conversation and reflecting on how great our day and our life is. And I'm not even joking. Unless she's in first trimester pregnancy and exhausted, our life is one of just appreciation every night.
Wow. Awesome. 5 questions. Well done, Jeff. Thank you so much for that. That was great.
Great job, Jeff.
Yes.
I'd like to come in after Chad does his 5 questions and ask, number 1 book recommendation that you give out.
I didn't know you were going to ask this. Tribal leadership.
Awesome.
When I was talking about I'm great and you're not, we're great and they're not, that's like level 3, level 4. And then level 5 is this transcendent place where you're competing with what's possible. And we actually named our business 5, the digit, after a level 5 tribe. So this is my number 1. It's a playbook for culture building.
And I can see that you're very similar to me. I saw all your markings of the pages. I bet there's a lot of highlighting and notes inside there too.
Oh
right?
yeah. It's pretty. It looks like I was actually studying in high school or something. So.
That is beautiful. So Jeff, it's been awesome having you on the show. Where can our listeners find you and connect with you?
Yeah, the best place is LinkedIn. I'm just going to say this so that it puts pressure on me. I bought the URL for a website I'm going to launch called undivided.life, because I always believe that you should lead an undivided life in all that you do. And that's one of the keys to success in our homes, our religion, our work, whatever. So undivided.life will be coming up soon. And since I said it on your podcast, I better do something about it.
Nothing like that type of accountability.
Yeah, go to energyby5.com or LinkedIn and look me up. And I would love to connect with anybody who came from this show. And it's how Chad and I got to know each other in the first place. So
awesome.
Perfect segue, Jeff, because I want to, as we close here, I want to do a little tribute to you. So I'm a very personable person. I find inspiration from others, and I don't know if it was my upbringing with my parents, but very affectionate and encouraging people. So I've always very easily been able to look at somebody and say, man, I'm really proud of you, or I really appreciate you, or I think you're doing a really great job. It's always been easy for me, but I understand it's not easy for everybody. So I left your conference, I think that was on a Friday morning or Saturday? Saturday morning. So we go through the conference, we go through all day, go through the classes. I remember leaving, I was right around dinner time and calling my wife, checking in with her, told her about your presentation, your speech. I went back to my hotel room, laying around, and I'm like, I just have to say something. That's just how my person, I just need you to know that I appreciate you. That's all. I don't have any expectations in return. So at 10:51 p.m., I write, hi, sir. Wanted to say I loved your talk today. Organizational culture and leadership are important to me. Your entire talk, including the story of your son's birth, was moving. Keep up the great work, and thanks for making an impact on people's lives. For me, that was, I needed to do that. I needed you to know that I appreciated that, and it made an impact on me. I had no expectations you're going to respond. But what happened 5 minutes later at 10:56, thanks, Chad. That was a powerful morning with a powerful group. Glad to be connected to you. Really appreciate the feedback. Let me know if I can ever be of service. Unbelievable. I mean, I remember reading that and thinking, this guy, just unbelievable. Not only did you respond, you had no inclination to respond on a Saturday night. I don't know what your motivation was as opposed to waiting to the next morning, but I just appreciated that. I wanted you to know I appreciated that. And then how I could be of service really resonated with me, that you were asking me that. So thank you.
Thank you for sharing that. I remember responding, but don't remember what I said. So it's kind of neat to be sitting here listening to this for the first time since that moment. So thank you.
That's awesome. Jeff Schiefelbein, thank you so much, sir, for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Jeff. That was awesome.
Thank you both. Keep up the great work. This is very important work you're doing, and people need to tune in. So thank you.
I appreciate that, Jeff. Thank you.